Shock arrives quietly in places built to impress. Crystal stems, velvet chairs, a piano that never misses a note. The Gilded Spoon was Manhattan's lullaby for people who never counted change. For me, Lena Harper, it was rent, tip math, and a smile that never cracked. By day, I studied the way language hides power. By night, I carried plates for people who believed they owned it. At 24, I moved like a ghost with good posture, white blouse, black apron, steady hands. I knew every table's rhythm, every picky habit, every manager's favorite word. Flawless. I was a final-year linguistics student at Columbia, surviving on scholarships, loans, and 10-hour shifts that made sleep a rumor. Words were my life. This room was my cage. Tonight, Storm wore a charcoal suit that could cut glass. Elon Vale. Billionaire. Founder. A name that makes markets hold their breath. He walked in at exactly 7. The dining room tilted as if gravity admired him. 2 lieutenants shadowed him, faces tight with that expensive fear only the powerful can afford. Our manager, Mr. Harrison, turned into choreography. Table 12 by the window, he whispered to the host, voice too sweet for a man who equated staff with cutlery. Lena, he said to me, thin smile razor sharp, you're on 12. It wasn't a compliment. It was a test. I approached with menus the way you approach a cliff and pretend it is a view. Good evening, gentlemen. Welcome to the Gilded Spoon. Elon Vale's eyes, ice under winter light, scan me the way people scan furniture. Price, purpose, and nothing else. He took the menu without a thank you. His associates copied his silence. The opening moves were standard. He inspected the wine list like it had cheated on him. The Bordeaux. 2005, he said, voice low, precise. Rainfall that season? Unusually dry, I answered. Lower yields, higher concentration. One of the decade's finest. A small flicker annoyance crossed his face, gone as quickly as it came. He waved off the tasting ritual. Just pour. Apps arrived. He sent his back for being 1 degree over. He disliked the lights, the playlist, the chair. Complaints delivered in that careful tone men use when they don't need to raise their voice to make the room obey. His associates nodded on cue, eyes never meeting mine. It was theater. I was the prop. I held. That's what service is when you do it right. A dam against someone else's weather. But weather can be cruel. I came with water. Silver pitcher, polished like a mirror. I had refilled that glass 1,000 times. Tonight, at the exact second I tipped the spout, the nearer associate gestured too wide to agree with his boss. The table jolted barely. 1 drop arced through the air, landed on the sleeve of Elon Vale's perfect jacket, and bloomed into the smallest dark star. Silence changed shape. He lowered his fork slowly, as if time had requested permission to move. I opened my mouth. I'm so. He raised a hand. Not to me. Past me. He turned to his men, switched languages like knives, German, and let the contempt bloom. A tidy translation for the English-only ears around us would be, look at this clumsy girl. Pretty empty-headed. Decorative, not competent. In German it was worse, harder consonants for sharper edges. The men laughed the laugh that sounds like obeying. He thought I was furniture. He thought his words were soundproof. My spine answered before my pride did. I set the pitcher down on the service stand with deliberate calm. I lifted my chin. And when I spoke, my voice did not belong to a waitress. It belonged to a woman who had earned her tongue the hard way. I answered in perfect, formal German. The kind you learn under tall windows with chalk still ghosting the slate. Sir, your assumption that my job defines my mind is as flawed as your use of the dative case. The correct phrasing would have been I offered the precise construction, cool, exact, then returned his word, incompetent, to its rightful owner with surgical politeness. The room felt it. Not the meaning, most didn't know German, but the shift. The stomach drop in a roller coaster when you remember the ground exists. His face changed like weather caught on camera, the faintest crack, then shock. The men's chuckles died like candles in rain. Mr. Harrison started toward us, panic wearing his entire body. Jessica, the senior server who kept a running tally of my imagined failures, froze with a wine glass mid-polish, eyes gleaming the way people's eyes gleam at car crashes. The The couple at table 8 stopped pretending not to listen. Elon Vale stared at me. The stare of a man who does not get surprised. Ever. Who are you? He asked back in German. Testing. Probing. My name is Lena Harper, I said in the same language, as calm as a clock. I'm your server. He leaned in half an inch. Where did you learn to speak like that? At Heidelberg, I answered, still in German. Comparative linguistics. Germanic philology. Thesis on post-unification dialect shifts. No drama. Just receipts. He sat back as if an invisible hand had pressed his chest. Heidelberg meant something to a man who collects libraries as trophies. His associates looked at him, then at me, like we had both turned into different people. Mr. Harrison reached us, sweat already apologizing for him. Mr. Vale, I am so Lena, my office now. Take your hand off her, Elon said in crisp English, never looking away from me. Harrison's grip vanished like it had touched a stove. Then the impossible. Elon gestured to the empty chair at his table. Sit, he said. Please. A billionaire does not say please to someone in a black apron. Not here. Not ever. Was it another test? A trap? A stage? Every rule in my handbook screamed no. Every story in my bones whispered not this time. I sat. His associates hovered, uncertain satellites with nowhere safe to orbit. Dessert menu. At the bar, Elon told them without moving his mouth. They fled. We were two in a room that pretended to be private. He studied me the way men study a chart that refuses to behave. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. The blade still there, sheathed now. Ms. Harper, he said. You are not what you seem. Most people aren't, Mr. Vale. A ghost of a smile flickered and went out. He did not apologize. Men like him rarely do. But something else arrived instead, interest edged with respect. Before I could decide what to make of it, the overhead lights softened. Mr. Harrison, recovering, turned up the piano like music could fix gravity. It couldn't. I didn't know it yet, but that one clean sentence in a foreign tongue had cracked the shell of a story I thought I understood. Power is a language. So is truth. Tonight, they met at table 12, under a chandelier that never flickered. He had called me pretty and empty-headed. I had given his insult back to him in a grammar he couldn't bend. And somewhere between the syllables, the balance of the room shifted. The chair at table 12 felt like a dare. I sat because my pride refused to leave standing. Elon Vale watched me the way a storm watches a coastline, measuring what will hold. He did not apologize. He shifted terrain. My team hears words, he said evenly. You hear what people mean. I need that. Before I could answer, Mr. Harrison arrived in a flurry of panic gloss. Mr. Vale again, our apologies, Lena was. Your server stays, Elon said without looking up. Then to me, quiet enough to be a kind of privacy. 9 o'clock. Vale Tower. 80th floor. Be on time. He set down enough cash to feed 3 kitchens and stood. His associates snapped to attention, grateful to exit the blast radius. He left in a slipstream of expensive silence, the room bending around his absence the way water does around a ship. And then the bill came due. Harrison rounded on me the instant the door closed. Office. Now. The words hit like plates stacking too fast. I followed him through the swinging door into the small back room where praise never visits. Grease in the air. A time clock that judges. What did you say to him? His whisper was a hiss. What did you do? I spoke German, I said, voice level. I corrected his grammar. His face went the color of undercooked beef. You corrected a billionaire in front of his guests? He insulted me, I answered. He thought I wouldn't understand. Your job isn't to understand, he snapped. Your job is to serve. Smile. Carry. Apologize. He sat the words down like rules on a table I hadn't agreed to set. If he calls, if he complains, you are finished here. Finished. The word did a quiet thing to my stomach. I stepped back into the dining room and felt the temperature change without the thermostat moving. Jessica was waiting at the service station with a smile made of sugar and glass. Congratulations, she sang softly. Table 12. Quite a show. Save it, I said. I didn't have room for her theater. She leaned in. You're not the first to mistake attention for an opening. Her eyes dropped to my apron pocket like she could see the weight of the card there. Careful, sweetheart. Men like that don't hold doors. They let you walk into the wall. The next 2 hours were a lesson in how fast a workplace can turn into weather. A drink tray I lifted slid as if the air tilted. Jessica's elbow accidentally tapped the corner. A half-dozen glasses went to the floor in a crystal rain. Harrison appeared, face thunder. Careless, he barked. You'll pay the breakage. A ticket vanished from the line. 30 minutes later, table 6 was furious. We ordered an hour ago, they said. Harrison pointed at me as if pointing could solve hunger. Apologize. I did. I always do. It's part of the language of survival. A busser named Leo found me rinsing shards from my hands. Hey, he whispered, eyes flicking toward the hall. Jess is saying you got his number. That you flirted your way into something. The kindness in his face hurt more than the rumor. He was trying to warn me. He was also telling me time was up. By 10, I was a woman made of politeness and bruise. My smile held. My insides didn't. I clocked out under the blue light of a machine that never says good night. Outside, the city exhaled steam into a cold that found every seam in my coat. My shoes were wet. My bones were noisy. I walked 24 blocks because the train felt like more asking. Neon. Vendors closing. The wind doing math with my cheeks. In my pocket, the business card might as well have been a small, sleek brick. Elon Vale. Vale Capital. Private line. Power pressed into metal. At home, my 4th-floor apartment offered its usual gifts. A radiator that loves to threaten. A window with a view of someone else's fire escape. A shelf packed with books that made me feel less alone. I dropped my bag and sat on the edge of my bed like a person afraid to stir a dangerous animal. The words from dinner replayed, clear as a recording. Pretty, empty-headed, incompetent. Then my answer in German, precise as a scalpel. The moment his face broke. The moment the room moved. The weight under it all. Rent due in 5 days. Loans with names that haunt mailboxes. A mother in Ohio who still sends me newspaper clippings about linguists as if willpower can pay tuition. $180,000. That's how big this could get in a world where numbers measure choices. Work for him? The man who treated me like furnishing until I spoke a language he respects. Stand beside him and translate not just words but the parts of people he doesn't bother to hear. Could I do that? Could I walk into the tower that wears his name and not lose mine at the door? I opened my laptop. The light turned the room into an interrogation. Vale Capital's homepage looked like a confession in brushed steel. I skimmed the press, the profiles that made complicated men look simple. Visionary. Brutal. Efficient. Philanthropic. Ruthless. All true depending on who was asked, what had been taken, what had been given. There's a grammar to power. A syntax of rooms where only some voices count. I had studied it from the outside. He just invited me inside. My phone buzzed. Mom. Just checking in, honey. How was your night? Love you. I stared at the message until it blurred. She taught me words matter. She also taught me to build a life that doesn't ask permission. Another buzz. Leo Harrison's mad. Jess is on a tear. Be careful tomorrow. Tomorrow. As if there's always one. I wrote a resignation email that was 3 sentences long and more freedom than poetry. Effective immediately. An opportunity one can't pass. Thank you. I stood in front of the mirror and took stock like a carpenter before a job. I did not look like a miracle. I looked like a woman who had run out of places to hide. My hair pulled back. My eyes older than 24. My hands steady enough to carry heat. Fear arrived, tried to negotiate. I let it talk. Then I said no. I would go. On my terms. Not as someone grateful for rescue. As someone with something he cannot buy. I slept the kind of sleep you fall into like water when your body decides it is done arguing with your mind. Morning came sharp and honest. The city put on its metal and glass. I chose a black dress that didn't apologize. A blazer that still smelled like the thrift store where I found it. And shoes that could keep secrets. I tucked my thesis notes into a slim folder because armor comes in many forms. On the way I counted breaths. At Vale Tower, the lobby made everyone small on purpose. Marble without mercy. Security that doesn't need to flex. A receptionist with perfect hair and eyes that say she knows exactly how expensive your time is. Lena Harper, I said. 9 o'clock. She checked, surprised for a fraction you could miss if you didn't study faces. Yes, Miss Harper. 80th floor. The express elevator lifted like a decision. My stomach remembered gravity with a delay. My reflection in the steel doors looked like a story mid-sentence. When the doors slid open, the floor was quiet, the kind of expensive quiet that has opinions. Glass wrapped the city like a trophy case. An assistant with a headset and patience that could kill led me to 2 double doors taller than any apology. Mr. Vale will be right with you, she said. I stood alone in a room designed to make people agree. Books on one wall, real ones, not props. Light on every surface. The city moving underneath like a promise and a threat. I wasn't here for a job. I was here for terms. I put my hand on the back of the chair in front of his desk and did not sit. The door behind me opened without a sound. Ms. Harper, he said. Calm. Precise. As if last night had been a test and we had both passed something neither of us had studied for. Pain had done its job. It pushed me to the edge of the map I drew for myself. The next step would not be soft. Before we discuss anything, I said, turning to face him, we're going to agree on respect. His mouth almost smiled. The room listened. So did he. The doors closed behind him with a hush that sounded like confidence. He didn't sit. He didn't posture. He set a leather folder on the edge of the desk and waited, as if patience itself were part of the test. I'm not here to be bought, I said, before the room could shape me into something small. I'm here to negotiate. His gaze held cool steel, not cold. Good, he said. We only hire people who know how to negotiate for themselves. Please terms. We stood on opposite sides of the desk like a border neither of us intended to cross. I didn't sit. I let my voice do the work. First, I said. Respect. Not the performative kind. The practical kind. I speak, I get heard. I will not be diminished in public or private by anyone. If it happens, I walk. No penalties. A pause. The barest nod. Noted. Second. My degree at Columbia is not a hobby. It is a spine. I finish it. I make time when I need to. If you want me, you want the brain intact. Agreed, he said, without the usual appending of strings. Third, I said. The signing bonus, redirect it. Establish a scholarship for first-generation linguistics students at Columbia. Write it down now before anyone changes their mind. Something unreadable crossed his face. Not annoyance. Not amusement. Recognition, maybe, of a move he hadn't seen often enough. He opened the folder, pulled a blank page toward him, and wrote with a pen heavy enough to sign countries. Vale Capital Cultural Bridging Scholarship, Columbia University. Executed this quarter. He slid the paper across to me. We'll involve our foundation to scale it. You'll co-author the criteria. You'll put your name on it. I don't need my name on it, I said. He capped the pen. Sometimes we put our names on things to promise ourselves we won't forget. The tension in my shoulders released by a degree I felt like an insult to gravity. Hope revises posture before it revises anything else. I took the chair then, not as a concession but as an agreement. Now my terms, he said, settling opposite me. No desk barrier between us. Conversation, not a hearing. You are a consultant, not staff. An exit clause you can pull at any time without prejudice. No photo on our website. No performative announcements. You are the mind we bring when the room goes blind. He watched for reaction. He got one, relief edged with suspicion. Anonymous has a cost, I said. It makes me easier to erase. He nodded once. Then we become each other's record. I breathed. What's the problem you can't solve? I asked, to pry the room off of me and onto the work. He tapped the folder. We have 2 negotiating teams, Munich and San Francisco, trying to merge a project timetable and nearly killing each other with politeness. Emails look agreeable. Deliverables disagree. Someone is saying yes and meaning maybe, maybe and meaning no. I don't have time for translation wars. Put me on the next call, I said. He looked at the clock without moving his head. You're early. It starts in 15 minutes. He hit a console. Screens woke. A sterile meeting link opened its mouth with chimes that had never met sincerity. Names appeared like faceplates. Kreuger stole Benji Park Ava Coates. Cameras found faces. Eyes found scripts. The polite battlefield assembled. MS. Harper will be observing, Elon said. No introductions. No oversold expertise. She has discretion to interrupt. The sentence rearranged air. I slid the headset on and felt old muscles remember what it means to listen with your whole body. Munich spoke first, Lars Kreuger, vowels disciplined and careful. We are aligned in spirit, he said, and look forward to finding common pacing. San Francisco nodded. Ava Coates, smile with corners that knew gravity. We're enthusiastic, she said. Some internal dependencies are still clarifying. Internal dependencies. Clarifying. The synonyms board in my head lit up with the words no one wanted to print. We are behind. Munich continued. We understood a preliminary prototype by end of month. Silence that looked like a smile. Of course, Ava said too fast. Benji, her counterpart, coughed the word apology without saying it. Stop, I said gently, before the script hardened into a lie we'd have to live with. Faces flinched, some at the interruption, some because relief and fear looked similar at first. Munich, I said. When you say end of month, what do you mean precisely? A working model? A demo? Numbers we can touch? Define prototype the way you'd explain it to a patient, not a peer. Lars blinked. Respect, hidden behind caution. We mean a simulation understandable to non-engineers. Video, metrics, failure modes transparent. No theater. Ava, I said. When you say clarifying, what do you mean? Tell me 3 blockers without adjectives. She exhaled like permission. Vendor firmware late. City permit not approved. Our QA lead left last week. San Francisco waited for permission to keep telling the truth. Munich waited for permission to adjust while saving face. The room was a scale. I set my thumb where it needed weight. Here's the translation, I said, and typed as I spoke to make it real. Prototype means working, honest, demonstrable by Lars. Clarifying means waiting on 2 externals and 1 missing human by Ava. Resolution proposal. Shift the prototype definition to a staged demo. 90 seconds of real behavior with clearly labeled gaps. Munich contributes visualization resources to make the truth readable. San Francisco publishes a blocker clock, public inside the team, so no one has to keep apologizing for the calendar. I stopped. Also, no more of course when nothing is of course. Say we want to or we can't yet. Your teams know the difference. Let them hear you say it. Silence, then the sound of a call turning to work. Benji unmuted. Thank God, he said, professional enough to look embarrassed after. Laughter pricked the surface like pins, letting out a little pressure. Lars nodded once, approval in a culture that doesn't call it approval. Ava's shoulders dropped a centimeter, which in corporate is what actual relief looks like. Elon didn't speak. You can learn a lot from a leader who knows that sometimes the smartest thing to say is nothing. We spent 30 minutes turning fog into nouns. I rewrote a timeline into verbs. We ended the call without applause, which is the right way to end a meeting that's supposed to have changed something. When the screen dimmed, I took off the headset like a helmet after a controlled burn. My pulse was calm in that particular way it gets when a problem admits it wants to be solved. Elon watched me, not with surprise but with calibration. You heard what no one wanted to admit, he said. You made it acceptable to say it. I translated, I said. From American nice to German exact. From German exact to American possible. There was a knock. The assistant slid in with a neat stack of papers and an orderly man not built for chaos. Richard Valen, CFO from the way numbers seemed to orbit his attention. Finance wants your eyes on exposure scenarios if Munich slides, Richard said to Elon. Then clocking me. This the consultant? MS. Harper, Elon said. Anonymous. Treat accordingly. Richard extended a hand and a question. That call. How much risk did we just avoid? 3 months of fake agreement, I said. Then a crisis labeled unexpected. That was entirely expected. He cracked a smile. Hire her, he said, then looked at Elon and revised. Whatever this is, keep it. The door closed. Elon leaned back, steepled fingers making a small tent in front of his mouth. It's a posture that says thinking without saying distance. You'll have an offer letter by end of day, he said. Consultancy. Your clause about respect word for word. Scholarship done. Anonymity your call every time. You bill us for what you touch, not what we assume. And the part where I say no when everyone wants yes? I asked. He nodded. I'm asking you here because you say no when you have to. I will back you. If I don't, you leave. Hope is not fireworks. It's a line item in a contract that says exit at will. It's a scholarship drafted in your handwriting. It's a meeting where no one pretends gravity is optional. He slid a single paper across the desk. Not the offer. A page torn from a notebook. 3 lines in neat script. Rules for our work. 1. No lying with adjectives. 2. Define the noun. 3. Keep promises. I looked up. Number 3 is ambitious, I said. It's measurable, he answered. We're going to measure it. The assistant reappeared. Security will set MS. Harper up with a temporary badge for anonymous access. Make it permanent, Elon said. No photo. Credentials tied to me. If there's a problem, it's mine. He stood. I did too. We did not shake hands. We didn't need the ceremony. Some agreements sign themselves. Lena, he said, and my name sounded different here. One more term. You tell me when to stop. When you go too far? I asked. When I start confusing winning with being right, he said simply. It is dangerous when powerful people hand you the break. It is more dangerous when they mean it. I nodded once. Then you tell me when to be brave, I said. Even if I don't want to. The corner of his mouth gave me the smallest affirmative. Private punctuation mark. I left the tower with a folder tucked under my arm, and a city that looked suddenly less like a series of locked doors and more like corridors I knew how to walk. On the sidewalk my phone buzzed. Mom, big day? Me bigger than that. I'll explain tonight. 3 dots. Proud of you. No matter what. At my mailbox an envelope waited. Final notice from my landlord. I slid it into the folder with the offer letter. Both were proof of the same thing. Life is what you pay attention to. At home, I opened the draft scholarship document and added 1 line to the criteria. Preference for applicants who work nights. Then I wrote 3 words at the top of my notebook the way I used to write vocabulary lists for languages I was teaching myself to love. Do not disappear. Hope isn't loud. It is a practice tone, a boundary with a spine, a promise written in ink and kept in public. It is a billionaire who doesn't apologize but listens. It is a waitress who doesn't bow but builds. Tomorrow we would test whether the rules we wrote together could survive a day. Tonight I let myself believe they might. By noon the city had already made up its mind about me. A grainy photo me in a thrifted blazer under glass towers, threaded its way through a blog with a headline built to bruise. Billionaire's new pet. From waitress to whisperer overnight. Someone had snapped it outside Vale Capital, framed like a morality play. The caption did worse than lie. It smirked. My phone lit up like panic. The group chat with my former coworkers blinked, then went suddenly quiet, which is another kind of loud. One message slipped through from Leo, the busser who always tied his apron too tight. You okay? They're saying things that aren't true. Don't read comments. I didn't, but I felt them anyway. Rumor is a smell that gets under doors. Upstairs, the glass-walled boardroom gathered like weather. Richard Valen, whose calm looks like math, closed the door and set down a single folder with the care people use for expensive glass. Elon leaned his forearms on the table. No tie sleeves pushed, attention steady. There were screens, charts, and a silence that wanted to be polite and failed. Richard didn't waste my time. Optics, he said. A gossip index spike. Whisper about favoritism. Some calls from investors who confuse noise with signal. A director cleared his throat the way people do when they want to say I told you so without the words. We need distance, Elon. Clean lines. Consultants don't belong at the top of the calendar. This story has legs. This story has lungs if we feed it, I said, before power recalibrated me into quiet. My voice was even. So we do not. We publish work, not adjectives. You want clean lines? Then draw them in public language. Elon didn't blink. Draft it, he said to me, and sat back like that was obvious. The HR lead, surgical and kind, worried for me in a way that came out like policy, slid a document across. Standard contractor guidelines, she said. Non-disclosure. Non-disparagement. No public statements. I touched the stack with a single finger. No, I said. I don't sign silence. I sign sense. Add a clause. We speak plainly when truth is at risk and do not weaponize privacy. Richard exhaled what might have been a laugh or pain. Legal will send me angry emojis, he murmured. But write the clause. We broke. I found an empty desk by the window and opened a blank page. Words are levers. I built one. Plain statement, no adjectives. My name is Lena Harper. I consult on communication for complex cross-cultural projects. My prior job was service work. My current job is language and alignment. I finish my degree while I do this. I am paid as a consultant for deliverables, not proximity. If our work fails, it will fail in daylight. If it succeeds, it will be because teams told the truth faster. I hit send. Elon replied with 2 words. Post it. Within the hour, the company intranet carried the statement. Externally, a short thread on the Vail Capital account mirrored it. No hero shots. No spin. A single photograph. A whiteboard with 3 lines in hand-drawn black marker. No lying with adjectives. Define the noun. Keep promises. The internet prefers fireworks. We lit a match and left it. The room in my chest unclenched a notch. The day did not coddle me. A joint Munich-San Francisco check-in pinged my calendar. I slid into a huddle room with a headset and a legal pad. Faces flickered on. Lars exact as a metronome. Ava, eyes tired, voice steady. Benji, whose shoulders carried too much code and not enough sleep. Quick update. Ava began, tone measured. Translation brace. Our demo environment crashed, Benji said, the sentence honest, the shame uninvited. Vendor patch corrupted a dependency. We can recover, but not by Friday. He didn't apologize. That was new. Lars inhaled. Disappointment, not accusation. Then we change the promise before the promise breaks us, he said. What do you propose? I stepped in, gentle, firm. 2-stage demo. 90 seconds of real behavior by Tuesday. Honest labels, works stubbed, not yet. Publish the dependency tree with colored dots. Green for stable, amber for risk, red for blocked. Add a public Y column for each red. No hidden bravery. Ava's mouth quirked, hope pretending to be caution. We can do that, she said. And we'll record it with live logs in the corner. No cinema. Good, Lars answered. We share the embarrassment. If we share the glory later. We ended on work, which is how survival starts. Back on the floor, the whisper had grown a spine. A news segment framed my face next to Elon's like a dare. A host with hair sprayed into certainty asked a question designed to bruise. Is this genius spotting raw talent, or power playing dress up? Mara from the front desk found me by the elevators. Her voice carried warmth and a shield. Ignore them, she said, slipping a candy into my palm like a small act of rebellion. My grandma says, tongues are wind, bricks are work. You're doing bricks, honey. In the lobby, Elijah from security tilted his head toward the scanner so its glare wouldn't scold my face. Internet storms pass, he said. The building holds if the people in it do. By late afternoon, the storm found a window. An email meant for private slithered public. A senior director, precise with numbers and sloppy with people, had written. We can leverage the Waitress narrative. Plays well with mainstream. Smile shots. A detonating group chats. Someone forwarded it to me with a sorry that did nothing but ache. I walked it to Elon's office. Didn't knock. Held the printout between 2 fingers like something that should not stain. He read. His jaw didn't clench because it did not need to. Draft the response, he said. I already did, I said, and handed him a 12-line reply to the entire leadership list. Subject on story and work. We do not leverage people. We build with them. Harper is not a narrative. She is a consultant. Our public statements will be about deliverables and accountability. If you need a smile shot, look in a mirror when you kept a promise. Hey. He sent it unchanged. The director who wrote the first email replied with something that wanted to be an apology and landed somewhere short. HR scheduled training. It would not fix culture in a day. But that day learned a sentence it could not unlearn. Evening folded in through glass like quiet. I took the long way out by the river because water tells the truth without asking permission. My phone buzzed. A number I did not know. MS. Harper. A man's voice, reedy, careful. This is Thomas from the Morning Ledger. Off the record, I'm fascinated. Can I ask how it felt to be discovered? I opened my mouth, then closed it. I thought of the scholarship draft on my desk, of Ava's No Cinema, of the whiteboard with promises that are not press releases. Nobody discovers us, I said finally. We introduce ourselves. Can I quote that? You can quote the deliverables, I said. Good night. I hung up and leaned on the railing. Across the water, the city blinked 1,000 tiny promises. Some of them would be kept. Some would turn to stories that never were. The difference I was learning was attention. What you feed. What you starve. Back home I opened my laptop. The scholarship criteria sat there half-born. I added 2 lines. Preference for night workers. No essays about hardship, we believe you. Then I wrote an internal memo and sent it to Elon and Richard. Subject line. Receipts don't blink. It was short. If we want this to outlive the chatter, publish a monthly promise report. 3 columns. Promise made, promise kept, promise late. Names masked when needed. Details when safe. Let the building see itself. Elon replied 5 minutes later, do it. I'll sign it. Pain is not a villain in this story. It is a teacher that does not waste time. It tells you what not to carry forward. It tells you where your spine needs to grow. Before sleep, I wrote 3 words at the top of my notebook in the same ink I used for hope. Starve the whisper. Tomorrow we would feed something else. Something boring and beautiful, work that holds. And somewhere in the noise, a quieter thing was forming, trust, not loud, not public, but sturdy enough to stand on when the wind decided to be cruel again. Hope does not arrive with banners. It shows up as a to-do list that refuses to be glamorous. By morning, the rumor had stopped screaming and started wheezing. Our plain statement held. Not because it trended, but because it was hard to fight a sentence with no adjectives. Inside the glass, the floor felt different. Still bright, still fast, but steadier, as if someone had found the building's breath and counted it back to calm. We ran the first open stand-up for the Munich-San Francisco project at 9 o'clock. No theater. Just faces on a screen and one rule pinned at the top. Honest labels. Benji shared the 90-second demo that didn't lie. In the corner of the video, live logs scrolled like a heartbeat you could see. Each tile wore its truth. Work stubbed, not yet. Next to the red ones, a small Y blinked, vendor patch, legacy dependency, human sleep. The chat lit, not with panic but with relief. Ava nodded, her voice the kind that steals tension by refusing to feed it. We'll post the dependency tree with colored dots by noon, she said. Green for stable. Amber for risk. Red for blocked. If you can move an amber, ping me. We pay in coffee. Laughter, small and real, cut the call's edge. At 10, I walked a draft of the kept promises report to Richard. 12 lines. 3 columns. Promise made. Promise kept. Promise late. Names masked where they needed protection. Dates visible because time matters. He read in silence, then added one tiny line at the top that changed the weight of the page. Owner. Make sure every line has one, he said. If a promise belongs to everyone, it belongs to no one. We posted it internally at 11 with no confetti. People clicked. You can tell when a thing lands not because it makes noise but because the floor shifts by a millimeter and everyone stands up straighter without knowing why. At noon, Elon and I sat with legal and foundation in a room that smelled like paper and deadlines. The scholarship brief lay on the table, small and heavier than it looked. Title? The foundation director asked. I kept it simple. The Vail Scholarship for Cultural Understanding. Preference for night workers. Preference for students who translate for their families in real life, not just on paper. No essays about hardship, we believe you. One line about deliverables. Tuition and time. If you buy books but not time, you purchase guilt, not learning. The director blinked, then smiled like someone who had been waiting to be asked to do the right thing and finally got permission. We can fund 5 this year, she said. 10 if we stop pretending some golf outings are philanthropy. Elon's mouth tipped at the corner. Approval, quiet and complete. 10, he said. And add a mentorship hour per month with staff across the company. Translation goes both ways. The press called at 2, hungry for heat. We offered bread. A single page on our site went live, programs and proof. It held the scholarship, the promise report, the open stand-up link, and a plain archive for one thing only, we said. We did. No hero photos. No staged smiles. A grainy screenshot of a demo with red boxes and a caption. We miss in daylight. Then we fix. A producer tried to wedge the old angle back in. The internet loves the Waitress story, she said on speaker, polite teeth bared. Can we get a shot of Lena in her apron with the skyline behind her? Elon looked at me, question in his eyes, answer already known. I shook my head. You can get a shot of a whiteboard, I said. Row 7. Promise late. Then film us moving it. There was a pause, the sound of a narrative tripping on a step it didn't expect. We'll circle back, she said and hung up. At 3, an investor breakfast we hadn't planned on became a room we could not skip. A fund out of Boston had flown in with eyebrows raised and patience thin. They did not ask about code. They asked about governance optics. Which is finance for are you adults? Richard did the math. Elon did the spine. I did the sentences that glue. Gossip cannot be our operating system, I said when they turned to me with the kind of impatience that passes for intellect in certain circles. So we built one that doesn't need it. You want comfort? Comfort is an honest status bar. Comfort is a promise report that includes the misses. If you need theater to invest, we are the wrong room. The senior partner across the table, hair perfect, voice ready to doubt, sat back. And if this costs you a week of headlines? Elon didn't look at him. He looked at the promise report in his hand, at the line where his own initials sat in the owner column. Then we pay a week to buy a year. They left without a sound you could register as approval. But the message that pinged Richard's phone as we were taking the elevator down said enough. We're in. Keep the report public inside the walls. Consider publishing a version outside in Q2. Pain can teach money new words. By 4, the company intranet's top comment thread belonged to the folks who hide in most films. Facilities, front desk, security. Mara pinned a note on the kept promises page. Promise made. Update the lobby scanner so it stops yelling at faces. Owner, facilities. Status. Amber. Parts on order. Why the light is rude. Rude light lies about people. Elijah added a photo of the tilted scanner with a caption. Until then we tilt. The machine does not get the last word. I wanted to cry in the middle of a corporate chat thread. Instead, I wrote a one-line reply. Thank you for making Tuesday kinder. It got more hearts than any memo I have ever sent. At 5:30, the Munich team posted the dependency tree. It looked like a subway map for a city that isn't real yet. Green dots outnumbered red by a breath. Under the red, the Y column carried sentences written like a promise to a future version of us. We chose to sleep rather than fake it. We owe Ava 2 hours. Vendor patch incoming. We test before we brag. Hope is not soft. It has calluses. It refuses to let you take easy shortcuts when the hard road is how you build a bridge that holds. Evening pressed its cheek to the windows. The floor thinned out. I packed my bag and passed Elon's office. He was still at his desk, jacket on the chair back, tie nowhere. He held a pen in one hand and my receipts don't blink memo in the other. He looked up. Didn't perform surprise. Walk? He asked. We took the longer river path, the one that cheap shoes know and expensive lives forget. The wind tasted like rain that decided to be polite and arrive tomorrow. He didn't start with the internet or the board or even the investor who had decided to be brave after dessert. He started with something smaller and, in the way that matters, larger. The scholarship, the no essay about hardship line, he said. That was correct. I nodded. People have already paid their dues. We don't need to charge them again in a different currency. He was quiet long enough for passing runners to be entire stories of their own. Then very softly, "Thank you for not selling me to the cameras today." I exhaled a laugh I hadn't meant to carry this far. "I didn't protect you," I said. "I protected the work. You happened to be near it." "Lucky me," he said, with that almost smile that feels like a door cracked open on purpose. We stopped by the low railing where the water pretends to be still. I thought of last week's panic, of yesterday's ache, of this morning's small wins no one will write a song about. I thought of the girl who had stood in a restaurant with her rent due, and learned that being underestimated can be a scaffold if you decide to climb it. "Tomorrow," I said, "the rumor will try again. It has habits. So do we." He nodded. "We keep ours." When I got home, the message waiting on my phone was not from a blog. It was from a woman whose hands I knew by their kindness. Mara. A photo of the front desk. The scanner still tilted. Underneath, a sticky note in tidy handwriting. "Promise kept. The light is less rude today. Hope lives in sticky notes more than in speeches." Before bed, I added one line to the programs and proof page. "Coming soon. Open office hours. 30 minutes Thursdays. Walk in. Ask anything. Bring a problem. Leave with a plan." I hovered over publish. Clicked. Closed the laptop. Pulled the cheap blanket up to my chin and let the day finally set. Someone on the internet would wake up early tomorrow to invent a story. We would wake up to make one. Ours wouldn't shout. It would stack. It would be heavy. It would hold. And for the first time since the glass shattered in that dining room, I believed something outrageous and simple at once. We are allowed to win like this. Justice did not arrive with sirens. It came in at noon, asked for water, and opened a notebook. 3 weeks after we put our first kept promises report on the wall, an innovation partner slid into our calendar with a deck so shiny it made the room feel underdressed. Triple our distribution footprint for medical supplies and mobile power packs. Fast. Clean. Cheap. Too clean. Priya Das skimmed the footnotes the way a violinist tests a note you can't hear unless you're listening for it. "There's dust under these decimals," she said. "We set the table the way we do when the stakes refuse to blink." Richard Valen from finance for the math, legal for bones, security for muscle, procurement for blood flow, operations for oxygen, and me for the part you cannot put on a slide, the human. Elon arrived with his sleeves rolled and his hands quiet. He did not perform. He distributed gravity. "We want the growth," Richard said, voice dry enough to absorb a spill. "We do not want a headline we cannot outlive." We called the translators, not the headset kind. The kind who hear the whole sentence when fear edits the first half. Luz from Puebla. Dow from District 7. Armin from Dhaka. We paid them as investigators, not accessories. We wrote one rule in bold on page 1. Worker-chosen interviews on paid time in their language with the right to say not today. The vendor smiled for 2 days. Frowned when we asked for unannounced visits. Smiled again, harder. Predators also know how to host. Site 1 smelled like bleach and fines. The floor gleamed. The windows did not open. A laminated poster said family above a list of penalties that could bankrupt a Tuesday. Luz met a woman shelving power packs like someone doing math with her spine. The woman called the fines helpful reminders, then lowered her voice. "When your child is sick, reminders taste like salt." Site 2 offered a training dorm. That was a barracks with cameras pointed at beds. Hallway photos showed smiling workers like wallpaper. None of those faces lived there now. Site 3, Armin followed overtime logs backward and found the spike began with rain. Not orders. Flooded roads. Fewer buses. Commutes became punishments. The fix was not a timesheet. It was wheels that could float. We returned with a report that did not try to be clever. 2 columns: what we saw. What must change? A third for the part most companies forget. Who pays when change is late? The last line was the only one that mattered. This vendor does not meet our dignity threshold. Richard tapped the folder 3 times, a metronome for decision. We walk, he said. I disclose, I added. Elon nodded. We absorb the hit. We tell the street before the street tells a story we cannot control. Legal asked for a media plan. We wrote a timeline instead. Evidence is slower than outrage because it has to stand up in the morning. By dusk, a plain English brief with 5 receipts and 0 adjectives was live on our program's in proof page. It traveled farther than any glossy values page we have ever paid to host. The rival CEO went on television with a smooth smile and called the violations isolated. He called fines motivation. He called our exit naive. I stepped to a microphone at a community center and said, motivation is a jacket. It should keep people warm, not choke them. Then I went back to work. We built the auditor's circle, third-party monitors nominated by workers, not managers. Rotating seats. Rotating languages. Unannounced rounds. Payment tied to change, not promises. We wired vendor onboarding with a bench test that fit on one honest page. Does your policy survive a bad day? Can a worker refuse and keep their job? Show 3 times you chose people over deadlines. Give us numbers of former employees we can call without you listening. We tested our own house too. A whisper slid into the whisper inbox. A junior manager pressuring temps to cover 2 roles without logging hours because budgets are brittle. He called it a hustle. We called it theft. HR moved. Legal moved. He left with a box firm, not humiliating. Consequence can be human without losing its spine. Markets twitched on Monday the way a knee remembers an injury. The board watched our inbox like it was a live wire. Elon sent the only sentence that mattered. Hold course. Publish updates. People first. We do not outsource our spine. 2 days later, a letter arrived on thin paper. No return address. English like a bridge built with borrowed planks. We heard what you said on TV. We thought you would forget. You did not. They took the cameras out of our room today. Laughing is no longer a fine. They added a bus. Came at 4. We got home before the street turned dangerous. Keep going. Pre-append it to the signals board under a column we now use for proof that breath returned. Evidence of relief. Around it, employees tape small field photos. A glove that no longer tears. A schedule that finally matches a bus. A receipt for diapers paid with a bridge fund that took 1 signature and 0 shame. Disclosure is where most firms choose adjectives. We chose dates. We filed a public update with names masked for safety, actions taken, and 1 quiet promise. Publish again in 30 days even if the news does not flatter us. We added a line at the top of the dashboard, where the board cannot pretend not to see it. Kept promises, external. Of the commitments we made to workers in our supply chain this quarter, how many did we keep on time in full without making anyone beg? The number was not perfect. Neither are we. But it moved in the right direction, and direction is how you measure courage. Whistleblowers found their voices. A prosecutor called, not to congratulate, to request documents. Process is slow. Justice is slower. Speed is not the only language that matters. One afternoon, a line worker visited Site 2 with his daughter. He held our brief, crumpled at the edges. You do what you say, he asked. We try, I said. When we fail, we say it and try again. He nodded. I can work with try. His daughter pressed a blue star sticker into my palm. I put it on my notebook and left it there. Inside our walls, we harden the soft things and soften the hard things. Legal wrote an exit with dignity clause vendors must honor when our decisions ripple harm. Finance ring-fenced a permanent emergency line so people stay whole when contracts wobble. Security published a 1-page do not call the police protocol for situations where help looks like a sandwich, not a siren. On Friday, an envelope came from DACA. Worker signatures in careful loops. Thank you for not using our pain as a press release. Inside, a thin blue thread bracelet. I tied it on. It tangled in my hoodie strings. I did not take it off. At the board, a director asked the question that always thinks it's new. How do we know this compassion is not eroding shareholder value? Richard clicked to 3 clean lines. Retention, rework, recall, all improved. He added a 4th, regulatory risk down. He did not plead. He presented. It is hard to argue with a floor that keeps refusing to crack. Later, at the river bench, the plaque with my mother's name caught late light. Elon steepled his fingers, that private shape he makes when his mind is 3 miles ahead. Justice feels like a slow elevator, he murmured. You push the button. You wait. You listen for the cable. It arrives, I said. Eventually. If you keep pushing the button and don't walk away. He nodded. I do not walk away. That night, Dow texted a photo from a pop-up clinic behind a factory. Plastic chairs, string lights, soup steaming like forgiveness. Caption: they came. We stayed. The soup helped. Justice is not a gavel. It is a table with more chairs each month. It is a report without adjectives. It is a metric that holds when the market sneezes. It is a van that hums at 2 in the morning in a language fear understands. Keep your promises. Count them. Publish them. Repeat. Elon turned the thin silver ring so the word engraved inside faced the sky. Freedom. Freedom isn't the absence of consequence, he said. It is the presence of choice. And the courage to choose the slow thing that holds, I answered. We got up. We went back to work. The next part of our story would be softer. A door, a room, a life you can keep. Justice circles, records, and builds a spine from receipts. A week after our supply chain brief, the city went from hush to boil. By Monday, the smear engine roared. Edited clips, fake insiders. A podcast sneer calling me a crisis actor. A bot swarm tried to drown our report. Priya Das pinned the noise beside our facts. Let the proof talk. Inside Northbridge, the board called an emergency session. Fear rearranged chairs. Elon Vale walked in without theater. We don't do performative ethics, he said. We do durable truth. If a number dips, we live with it. We do not trade people for a chart. What if this destroys us? Then we rebuild without the rot. We held a town hall in the atrium, not a stage. No spotlights. We answered in full sentences. If they sue, we show work. Bring receipts. Refuse theater. If stock drops, we show retention, rework, recall, safety. Floors don't crack. Why publish misses? Because unreported failures ferment. Sunlight is cheaper. By noon, a countersuit arrived with a gag order. A judge denied it. Public trust is hurt by fraud, not facts. They turned up volume, we turned up evidence. Auditors' circle expanded. Worker monitors fed patterns. Procurement locked the bench test. Survive a bad day. Refuse and keep your job. Show 3 people over deadline calls. Vendors who flunked lost oxygen. The curve steadied. At 2, the bureau signaled. Supplemental warrants. That night, quiet raids found storage sites where old invoices slept beside newer lies. A thumb drive waited, its file names guilty. Our inbox changed weather. They took the dorm cameras. We laughed. No fine. We got home before the road turned bad. Keep going. A supervisor apologized for being dramatic. We wrote back. Dignity is policy. The rival went on TV to call us naive. I spoke from a dented podium. Naivety is choosing speed over oxygen. We choose breath. Elon Vale's staff letter refused family metaphors. Families keep secrets. We keep records. He wrote, we will miss things. Say it. Correct in daylight. If anyone asks for silence, send it to me. Next day, prosecutors asked for logs and chain of custody. Priya Das had 3 color-coded sets ready. Pick blue, red, or green. At dusk, a benevolent offer arrived. Donation in my name, public clarification. A muzzling NDA. Last line. Everyone wins if we move on. I wrote no sale and posted it with our brief. If they wanted daylight, we gave them noon. The city blinked in recognition. A reporter used pattern correctly on live TV. Third-party workers sent a group photo, we heard you. We will testify when safe. On Friday, kept promises external. Ticked up a sliver, modest and honest. Richard Valen laid down 4 lines. Retention up, rework down, recall down, risk down. No speech. Facts on the table. That night, a note waited under my mother's plaque. Bus transfer, phone minutes, and thank you for not asking us to be brave in secret. I left it there. Some proof should not be archived out of sight. Justice isn't a headline, it's posture. Our doors opened without humiliation. Sign-offs shrank. Error messages showed up before people wasted time. We added a new dashboard line. Minutes returned where we gave life back a minute at a time. At midnight, an anonymous threat. You'll never touch me. I'll go underground. The old me would lose sleep. I forwarded it to Priya Das, made tea and slept. Fear can advise, it cannot drive. By sunrise, the bureau had a new question and a new address. Momentum had shifted. Power screams before it breaks. Then it stops. No victory lap. Morning shift. Door open. Keep counting. Justice is hardest after the city stops watching. Happiness didn't fall like confetti. It arrived as a room that fit our breathing. By spring, the building stopped wasting people. Turnstiles blinked green. Scanners quit scolding. Grace bands became policy. Safe leave fit on one page. The STARS fund moved from whisper to line item. Above revenue and sentiment, one metric stayed first. Kept promises. Tied to retention, cycle time, safety, quality, and something rarer, collective calm. We opened our 7th open care clinic in rain. On the door, we are open. You are safe. Patients arrived softly. A kid watched a stuffed dinosaur get its blood pressure, then offered an arm. Priya Das added minutes returned. Every killed approval and fixed loop bent the curve and loosened the building's tie. We built a listening lab. 2 chairs, 1 hour, no minutes. A stool saved a knee approved. A warning moved to the top of a form. Users stopped swearing. Stand-ups began with, "What did we keep this week?" Wins landed on boring things that make Tuesday kind. The community scaled what loves to be copied. Dow's night market health set soup and string lights behind factories. Questions doubled, so we brought answers and more soup. Luz wrote a glossary of dignity, so why are you late? Became what help would make this easier? In a flood, Armin said, money buys little. Chargers and lanterns buy time. We shipped both. Photos came back. Tiny sons on unbraced shoulders. Inside Northbridge, the auditor's circle. Worker nominated, rotating, paid. Grew fluent. Vendor onboarding stayed welded to the bench test. Our first supply chain report read like apology and blueprint. No adjectives, 3 red flags, 8 fixes, 40 paid in full. We sent it to critics and taped it in the break room. Sundays stayed pancakes. Rituals teach memory. The stubborn plant lived. Elon Vale lifted it monthly. Still alive. He cued in clinic lines, wrote 3-sentence thank yous, what he saw, why it mattered, what it changed, and took the stairs out of habit. Year-end kept promises read like a recipe. 30,000 plus quiet room breaks taken without interrogation. $2 million plus overtime corrected and paid. 18,000 plus schedules posted early in real languages. 0 incidents that would have become headlines if we'd looked away. We listed misses. 2 late calls, 1 cold translation, a landlord who escalated. We fixed what we could and left the rest in light. At second shift, a dishwasher taught circuits. A line cook taught math teens trust. A nanny prototype daycare around real hours. On the wall. There is no such thing as unskilled. Around town. Breaks are policy. Please be patient with our joy. Last stalls became call stalls with shelves and soft lights. A warehouse replaced no loitering with sit. Breathe. Water's inside. We added family days. If the hospital, school, or grief calls, you go. The cost looked loud for a month, quiet for a year. Tenderness pays if you count right. At dusk, our ritual. River bench, thin silver ring, freedom flashing in last light. Freedom isn't exit, Elon Vale said. It's choosing your bonds. And staying, I said, when staying is braver. We didn't stage love. We made soup in time. Tuesdays, listening lab. Thursdays, field rounds. Leaders learn 3 lines, you are right. You are safe. Here's what we do next. People still tried to flatten it, billionaire and poor girl. The true center. I kept returning the wallet and the work. Elon Vale made space and held it when rumor pressed. Power measured in promises kept, not applause. On the blackout anniversary, hand crank radios again, memory, not drama. Sheet cake, paper plates, a frosting argument that mattered. The market wanted a secret. Richard Valen laid for stubborn curves. Regulators left with fewer questions. Floors still refused to crack. At year's end we stood in coffee and new paint. Elijah calm at the door. Mara with names on cups. Priya taped the last chart and finally sat. Nurse Amara pinned a star. For bravery. I kept it simple, we kept promises. When we failed we said it and tried again. Applause gathered like neighbors. Later, at my mother's bench, the river argued with light. Elon Vale set down his old wallet and the ring. We did not rush the quiet. If night is pressed to your window, happiness is not the finish line. It lives in the middle, slow repair, patient audits, forms that arrive before confusion. Rooms where I was wrong is safe. I was invisible. Now I keep doors. I teach hinges. Find a wallet in the rain, return it, and keep returning yourself to the small work that holds. Wealth is real when shared. Love is strong when free. Justice becomes joy when the city's quiet parts can say, yes, that, more. We are not finished. That is the happiest truth. Attention is the scarcest resource. Spend it where it multiplies.